Welcome to Mythos Most Wanted, where ancient legends go on trial. Here, we don't just tell old stories. We dig up cold cases buried in sacred texts, forgotten temples, and whispers of eternity. Each episode unearths the darkest, most violent crimes ever committed by divine beings. From genocidal tantrums to cosmic war crimes. From human sacrifice to unholy betrayal. We'll break down their lives, their motives, and their madness. With psychological evaluations, crime scene analysis, witness interviews, and final verdicts. Because here, mythology isn't worshipped, it's interrogated. This is Mythos Most Wanted, and every god has blood on their hands. Today, we look at the blood harvest and the trial of Supay, the sadistic and evil Incan god of death. There are gods we worship, gods we love, and then there are gods we fear. In the high reaches of the Peruvian Andes, past the frostbitten ruins of Machu Picchu and deeper than the darkest tombs of forgotten kings, lies a myth so terrifying the Inca dared not speak his name aloud. He was not the bringer of rain, nor the protector of crops. He was the devourer of the dead. He ruled not in the skies above, but in the damp, choking shadows below. His name was Supay. To the Inca, Supay was the god of the underworld, lord of Ucupacha, where spirits wandered and flesh rotted. But recent discoveries suggest Supay was not content with the dead. He wanted the living. And for centuries, he may have walked among them, unholy, unbound, and utterly bloodthirsty. This is the true story of a god who became a butcher, a trial held in secret, and a voice that still haunts the wind above the Andes. It began not with a prophecy, but with a shovel. In 2023, a research team working just outside Ayacucho made a discovery that would shatter the boundaries between myth and forensic science. Expecting a ceremonial burial site, they unearthed something far darker. A mass grave with over 400 skeletal remains, all grotesquely dismembered, all bearing signs of trauma that no weapon could explain. Skulls had imploded from within, spines were snapped backwards, and ribs appeared to have been torn from the inside out. Even stranger, many of the bodies had been bound and facing downward, mouths gagged, as if silenced forever. There were no burial artifacts, no offerings, no honor. Only the stench of death and the echoes of torment. Archaeologists soon found ritualistic carvings scrawled onto the cavern walls, scratched into the rock with bone. Among these symbols were unmistakable references to Supay, glyphs depicting a horned figure with smoke rising from his mouth, surrounded by the decapitated heads of children and warriors alike. It wasn't a tomb. It was an execution chamber. Supay has always existed on the fringes of mythology. To many modern Peruvians, he was merely a tale told to frighten children, a shadow beneath the bed of civilization. But ancient Incan records, preserved in quipu knots and colonial-era manuscripts, paint a picture of a deity as feared as he was powerful. Unlike most gods, Supay did not demand worship. He demanded appeasement. Human sacrifice was not a gift, it was a bribe. Supay's priests, known as the Utakus, were said to roam the villages before eclipses, selecting victims with markings on their palms, birthmarks believed to signal a soul too bright for the sun to keep. In the 14th century, an entire village, Llana Pampa, vanished overnight. Not a single trace of life was found, save for a ring of ash and blood. The event was dismissed as an earthquake. But in 2024, cave paintings discovered near the site told another story. The god of the underworld had walked among them, and they had welcomed him in ritual, before being torn limb from limb. The records speak of a harvest, an event that took place once every century, when Supay would rise from the deepest fissure of Ucupacha to collect souls by the hundreds. Witnesses From the time claimed to hear screaming for 3 days and nights. It was said Supay didn't simply kill, he enjoyed pulling the string that unraveled the very essence of life. The world had long buried Supay under layers of folklore until he came back. In 2024, during a sanctioned reenactment of an ancient ceremony in Cusco, 36-year-old performer Luis Yupanqui was playing the role of Supay. The performance was theatrical until the moment Luis began to seize. His body contorted unnaturally. His voice deepened to a growl that split the microphones. Onlookers screamed as his eyes turned pitch black and he began reciting incantations in extinct Quechua dialects, ones he had never studied. Captured on live stream, the footage went viral. But what happened next was quietly contained. Luis was taken into custody and transported to a secure psychiatric facility outside Lima. There, he claimed he was no longer Luis, that Supay had returned, and he was only the vessel. Doctors attempted every form of psychological testing. Nothing explained how Luis could recount details of rituals, lost for centuries, or draw maps of sacred Incan burial sites with eerie precision. At night, he whispered to his guards, promising them immortality or torment. Peru's Ministry of Myth and Culture brought in criminal psychiatrist Dr. Leila Guerrero, an expert in religious psychosis and mythopersonality syndrome. Her initial assessment was cautious, grounded in science. But her first session with the entity, calling itself Supay, changed everything. Dr. Leila Guerrero, Psychiatric Evaluation, March 2025. This is not a delusion. It is something older, something violent that wears human skin like a coat. Luis's brain scans show fluctuating neural activity that defies explanation. At times, his synaptic patterns are non-human, like something else is borrowing his body. Supay speaks of his crimes with pride. He sees suffering as art, fear as communion. Supay described his favorite moment in death, the point when the soul realizes it cannot leave, when it begs, and I say no. She diagnosed the entity with pan-dimensional narcissistic psychosis and ritualistic sadism with divine delusions. But her notes also included something more chilling. There is no remorse, no empathy, only hunger. He is the god of death, and he's been waiting for us to forget. In what remains one of the most controversial psychiatric interviews ever conducted, Dr. Leila Guerrero sat face to face with the being claiming to be Supay. Though the full footage has never been made public, a portion of the transcript, declassified under Peru's Mythological Threat Act, offers a chilling glimpse into the encounter. In the sterile confines of interview room 7C, Dr. Guerrero asked a simple question. Who are you? Supay, speaking through the possessed Luis Yupanqui, replied, in a voice that seemed to echo from the grave, I am the ending, the one who swallows time, the scream beneath the soil. When asked why he killed, the entity answered, to remind the sun that it is not alone. For every breath above, there must be silence below. Dr. Guerrero pressed further, asking if he felt regret. Supay paused, long enough for the silence to become unbearable, before whispering, I feel delight when the eyes go wide, when the spirit snaps like a twig. The final question, why now, was met with a response that left even seasoned observers shaken. Because the world is ready again. It has grown fat, forgetful. It calls gods dead. I came to prove you wrong. With no legal framework to try a deity, Peru established the mythological tribunal, a panel of judges, scholars, and spiritual leaders. Supay, through Luis, was charged with crimes against humanity, interdimensional possession, and ritual mass murder. The trial lasted only 2 days. Supay refused legal counsel. He spoke only once. "Your bones will thank me." He was declared guilty on all counts. But execution was never an option. Supay, as entity or idea, cannot be killed. So the court did the unthinkable. They sentenced him to eternal containment. Beneath the Andes, an obsidian chamber was carved and sealed with sacred glyphs, guarded by a secret order known as Los Vigilantes del Abismo, the Watchers of the Abyss. Luis, or whatever remained of him, was placed inside, his body chained, his mind warded with binding spells passed down by the last remaining Incan shamans. No one has heard from him since. To this day, hikers claim they hear whispering beneath certain cliffs in the Andes. Offerings of blood and bone appear at forgotten shrines. Children vanish from villages during eclipses, their names carved into stone hours before anyone realizes they're gone. The harvest, some say, was never stopped, only delayed. Supay sleeps, but gods do not dream, they wait. And in the shadows beneath the earth, something ancient still smiles. Another case closed. But in the world of gods, justice is never final. If you want more divine investigations, brutal truths, and mythological madness, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to Mythos Most Wanted. Your voice helps echo justice across the ages. And trust us, there are darker gods still waiting to be exposed.